today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I am Roby Brock. In the wake of last night's historic Alabama U.S. Senate race, we are here to offer a little analysis. I've got Richard Bearden with me. He's from Impact Management Group. He's a GOP strategist, former executive director of the Republican Party of Arkansas. Jessica DeLoach Sabin, a Democratic strategist, Talk Business and Politics contributor, formerly with the Democratic Party of Arkansas. We got an R, we got a D. We can talk about all this. All right, Jessica, I'm coming to you first.
Okay.
What happened in Alabama last night? Give me your analysis.
Oh, wow. Where do I start? A lot happened in Alabama last night. It was a very, very, very close race. But what you saw was the rejection of Trump-style politics. I think it's important for people to understand that what they've seen from President Trump, from his behaviors, you can't emulate that and continue to win across the country. That is definitely something that we're starting to see more and more aligned with him. That's not something that other people can pick up and imitate and expect to win. And not for nothing, but Roy Moore was a pretty extreme guy. And I think that there was a rejection of all the things that Alabama voters know about him, whether it be, hey, anything past the 10th Amendment, we don't really need it. We're good. If you know anything about the Constitution and what those amendments are, that's a pretty bad way to think about governing this country. Also talking about who deserves to have a seat at the table, and also the other extremist stuff that's come out of his mouth, and of course the allegations of sexual misconduct and being a predator. That didn't work out very well for him.
Yep. All right, Richard, you may have a different opinion on what happened in
Not
Alabama
so fast,
last
my
night.
friend, as they say on Lee Corso says. A couple of things I think to consider. Number one, Roy Moore was a flawed candidate. It was a very flawed candidate. I think Luther Strange and certain name of other Republican here probably wins the Senate seat last night, in my opinion. So I think you have to put all of that into perspective. The Democrats, I think, outraised him 2-1. There was a lot of national money that flew in there. The Republican establishment never really got behind Roy Moore. President Trump got behind him very late in kind of this staged conversation and stages to get behind him. So, I think you have to put all of that in perspective. Good Democrat candidate, give you credit for that. Bad Republican, and the good Democrat candidate can't get over 50% of the vote because of the write-in vote. So again, I think if you put that in the wholeality of the perspective, it was a win for the Democrats. Don't know if it was an outright rejection of everything going for the
Here's a
Republican
number
Party.
to keep in mind here on this too, because I think this is interesting from some of the data that we've seen here. Roy Moore got about 49% of the number of votes that Donald Trump got in Alabama in 2016, just 13 months ago. Doug Jones got 93% of the amount of votes that Hillary Clinton got in Alabama in 2016. That's turnout, that's enthusiasm, and I think to your point, Roy Moore, flawed candidate, did not perform as well as a GOP candidate could. Doug Jones, good Democratic candidate, did overperform for a special election.
This is a deep red state. Alabama is a deep red state. There is really no excuse for the Republican Party to have lost the election they lost last night. They lost it because they ran a flawed candidate, because they put all of their eggs in a basket, the basket that belongs to the people that have now hijacked the Republican Party. And most Republicans will tell you they don't like the direction that things are headed under the leadership of these types of extremists. The Democrat should not have won last night. The Democrat won because people in Alabama said, we don't want any more of this. We want to reject this extremism, and not for nothing. But you have a lot of people who came together. They worked together to get the Democrat elected in a way that they did not work together in 2016.
African Americans,
the NAACP, all the targeted outreach, everything that the DNC did, other groups that understood the value of winning this race, they came together and they worked in a very strategic way. So yeah, maybe the Democrat won by a hair, but the Democrat won because the Republicans could not find anyone better in the state of Alabama to run in that race. That's a failure of the Republican Party.
Well, they found a few. They just couldn't get them over the victory line there.
Yeah.
What about, you mentioned the write-in vote earlier. It was around a 2% margin there, and the margin
2%.
of victory was less than 2%. So that was a factor too. Because I think you could argue, you tell me if I'm wrong, Richard, but a lot of those write-in candidates were not Democratic voters. Those were conservatives that were not happy with their choice.
Yeah, no, you had the Republican establishment in Alabama that all but just came out and said Roy Moore's not the best choice. And I agree. There was a failure on the behalf of the Republican Party process to put up a good candidate. And again, credit to the Democrats, credit to Senator-elect Jones for being the guy that won last night. I don't know that you can take this particular special election and say that's now going to be replicated in Mississippi and Georgia and Arkansas and some other places. There's a long, hard campaign coming up. I think Republicans now may feel a little bit of what it was to be a Democrat with President Obama in office, where you've got a controversial president at times that is energizing to the other party's base. But I think there's a lot of time to see where Trump rights the ship or doesn't right the ship heading into the 2018 election
Follow up
cycle.
with you on this, Richard. Are Republicans okay with this loss, though? You talked about the flawed candidacy of Roy Moore. There was going to be a lot of hand-wringing if he had been elected to the U.S. Senate that here's our additional face of the National Republican Party. There has to be a little bit of relief in Republican circles that Roy Moore didn't win.
I think so. And if you go back and look at Roy Moore's history, he was elected to the Supreme Court. He was removed from office. He had run, I think, for governor twice over there. So he was known as sort of a dividing type candidate in Alabama politics. So you had the other Republican establishment in the Senate saying we're going to have to consider whether he's seated or not. So I think in a way, again, they're going to live with a Democrat for a couple of years and then see what happens when that seat comes back up for election in the future.
Jessica, how do Democrats capture the wave on this, the momentum, the energy, the enthusiasm that you saw last night? And where do they focus their energies now in other states?
Well, I think it's the lessons that you derive from how you got the outcome you got last night. It's the lessons the Democratic Party has been needing to learn for a long time now. It's the people who, if mobilized, will show up and get you across the finish line. But people want to show up for quality candidates. They need to feel a connection to that candidate. You can't just wait until it's time to vote to say, hey, can you just show up and do me a solid here and we'll represent your interests. People need more than that, and people need to be heard. And I think that that's something that a lot of the voters who got Jones over the finish line last night, that's what they believed in. So I think that's a huge lesson the Democrats have to learn. Also, understanding that you have to be targeted with your races. I understand this whole paint it blue, recruit. Yes, if you don't run, you'll never know. But you also need to know your numbers. You need to know what you've got to do to win. You need to know what races are possible and which seats are flippable. That's what you've got to focus on. And if you have the resources to go bigger than that, by all means, please do so. But right now is the time to be very strategic and targeted.
All right, coming back to you again on Jessica on this one there.
Yeah.
So what do we think happens nationally now? It's going to be 51-49 in the U.S. Senate. There's still a tough electoral map for Democrats to flip the U.S. Senate, much less the House. They still need a lot of seats. Do you think that they've got, are they in a better position to do it now?
They are in a far better position to do it now than they would have been had they lost last night. Right now, all they need after last night's victory are 2 more Senate seats. They have to hang on to what they have. You need 2 more. So you're going to look at Arizona, you're going to look at Nevada, you're going to see the Democratic Party push messaging that says, look, you get these 2 seats and you put an end to the Trump agenda. That's what you do. And honestly, I think this country is overdue for a little bit more balance right now because things do really feel out of sorts, and a lot of Republicans and Democrats will tell you that. So that's the game for the Democrats right there.
Tennessee in play in the Senate?
I don't think so. I mean, again, as Jessica said, a lot of seats Democrats have to defend. And I think, that's really going to be the giant chess match. A lot of money will have to be raised. I think both parties, the Democrats feel some momentum. They've won some seats in Virginia. They won some seats in New Jersey. But I think on the other side, you're going to see some adjustments from the Republicans. And a lot of money will be raised on both sides. And again, that's what campaigns are for. So it's going to be an exciting 2018 election cycle.
All right, both of you have been in the state party headquarters before. Anything change in Arkansas now in 2018 because of last night or just because of what you've seen trending over the last couple of weeks and months?
I don't know that Arkansas will adjust any of the national trends. I mean, I do think, as the Republicans have increased really to super majorities in both the House and the Senate, at some point there could be some natural swing back to the Democrats on some House and Senate seats. I mean, I really don't see a wholesale change here on the statewide elected offices. I think the Democrat Party here is still having to restructure and rebuild, and they're not there yet.
Yeah, Jessica, last word.
Right, there are a lot of ifs, right? And so if you think about the governor, who now is being challenged from the right pretty significantly, I mean, in terms of rhetoric, potentially, right?
Yeah.
I think that overall the governor is very popular, but because he's being challenged from the right and because he takes nothing for granted, there is room to say, hey, are you going to change your tone a little bit? If you change your tone, will that be off-putting to certain voters? How much is Arkansas similar to Alabama when it comes to certain type of, conservative beliefs and values? The Democrats will
And
react
football,
to that.
too.
And
Nine
football.
football, yeah, that's
The
right.
Democrats will
Or not.
react to that. But right now what you're seeing with the Democratic Party is a lot of rebuilding. You see a lot of young energy coming into that party. And a lot of people saying, look, you don't know me, but you're going to know me. And I'm showing up to run because I want to do well by my state. And that's very
Yeah,
encouraging.
it may take a couple of cycles before we see that. We saw that with the
believe
Republicans,
so.
too. All right, Richard Bearden, Jessica DeLoach Sabin, thank you both very much. Appreciate you. That's all for today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.